Our next storyteller is Xiara Quinn. Xiara is incredibly brave. She is brave in the heart open, grab life by the seat of her pants kind of brave. She has grit and determination. She is driven by empathy, equity, and compassion, and it shows. When she gets talking about creating more equitable systems, her voice gets louder. She stands up, and her boldness cannot be ignored. Xiara is a lead toddler teacher with Learning Grove in Cincinnati. She has a bachelor's degree in human development and community engagement and is currently working towards a master's in early childhood education. And when asked to write about herself, Xiara wrote this: "My first love is dance. I shamelessly cry when watching movies. My favorite pastime is cuddling with my husband and my dogs." Let's welcome Xiara Quinn to the stage.
In the summer of 2020, I was promoted to lead teacher, and I don't have to go into detail about what was happening in the summer of 2020. I'll say that it was quite an experience stepping into a new role in unprecedented times. And later in the fall of that year, a new toddler was enrolled in my classroom. As I was getting to know the family, one of the first concerns that the mother shared with me was that her daughter was not speaking. And I'm just going to call this child Xiara. And at the time, Xiara was about 20 months old. And 20-month-olds are not necessarily using clearly articulate words, but they're typically able to repeat simple words and phrases. But Xiara wasn't saying any words at all. I wasn't too alarmed because at this point in the pandemic, there were some concerns brewing among early childhood professionals and healthcare professionals that there might be some delays in language development because children in their prime of language development were interacting with adults and others with masks and things. So I reassured the mother, who I will just refer to as Mom throughout the story, that being around other children might give her the push that she needs to start saying some words, and that we would see how things go in a couple of months. And let me tell you, getting to know Xiara over the following months was one of the sweetest joys of my life. Xiara is so funny, and she is thoughtful, she is inquisitive, and she can spend all day writing and drawing, and her smile could soothe your soul in an instant. And after a few months in my classroom, she was still not saying any words. A few more months went by, and still no words. It was becoming clear that some intervention was needed. Mom and I started having continuous conversations about what we could do. In figuring out how to support Xiara's language, all but consumed our energy. I encouraged Mom to seek out speech therapy. We incorporated different strategies recommended by the speech therapist into the classroom, like sign language. And speech therapy led into a referral to a developmental specialist, which led to an initial diagnosis and ongoing pediatric occupational therapy. It took a while, but we started to get some answers. And the real MVP in all of this was Mom. It was not an easy task getting her daughter to and from all of these appointments, and she has 2 other children as well. And I'm sure it was absolutely frustrating when it seemed like little progress was being made. But I will be honest and say that I was experiencing a little bit of frustration with Mom that I didn't know how to handle. Whenever it felt like we hit a wall, Mom's explanation was, Xiara's just stubborn, she'll start talking when she wants to, or there's nothing wrong with Xiara. I wanted Mom to understand that this was going to be a long journey, possibly lifelong. And so I scheduled a conference with Mom just to check in and see if I could figure out what was keeping her from fully engaging. And during that conversation, We talked about some progress that Xiara was making with her language and how her appointments were going, the usual stuff. And then our conversation kind of casually slipped into just laughing about some of the funny things she does and how she interacts with her sisters. Our laughter died down, and I noticed Mom's demeanor shift a bit. Her eyes softened, and she said, I just want to talk to my daughter. And I stopped taking notes, and I just sat with what she just said to me. And two things struck me in that moment. The first was that Mom was grieving. What I called a lack of engagement was actually a mother mourning the loss of all the ideals and hopes that parents have with a typically developing child. Mom needed time to come to terms with the fact that raising Xiara will not be what she pictured. The second thing that hit me was a bit of disappointment in myself. It wasn't Mom that lacked engagement, it was me. For almost a year, I made this whole situation such an intellectual issue, and I made it just about Xiara. I missed what was staring me in the face, which was that the beauty of this work is always about the needs of the whole family. So it was then that I knew what I needed to do. I began showing Mom all the ways that she can communicate with her daughter even without words. Every time we spoke, I made a conscious choice not to talk about language. She was getting enough of that talk with her number of specialists and therapists. I chose to spend our time bragging about how Xiara comforted her friend when they cried, how she cheered for herself when she got a block tower to stay up, or how she flipped through a book on the couch with all of her friends surrounding, and she read to her friends with so much animation and wonder. Xiara's in preschool now. Mom and I let out a big sigh of relief when we were finally able to get an evaluation set up for her with Cincinnati Public Schools so that she can be equipped with an IEP that will support her through preschool in her school years. And Xiara was always going to be all right. It was Mom and Dad and Grandma and me that were changed throughout this whole journey. It is likely that Xiara will not speak or communicate like a typically developing person and may also receive an autism diagnosis. But I tell you, the family's not afraid anymore. They simply enjoy their child as she is right now. Instead of calling Xiara stubborn, they call her bold, they call her funny, they call her fearless and kind. This family changed me and made me a better educator, and I have been humbled and honored to be a part of this family's journey. Thank you.